Hello learners, welcome again to our session today, a continuation of what we were doing earlier on. Today we are in our last segment of what we've been doing. So I want us to go to that question part D, where we are told that the following information relates to portfolio P and N. The average return I'm given, the beta I'm given, the standard deviation, as well as an unsystematic risk. So anytime you've seen an examiner giving you unsystematic risk, the whole idea that should start clicking at the back of your mind, my good students, like in this case I was given a systematic risk, is the concept of the appraisal ratio, right? Appraisal ratio. Anytime you've seen you being given the unsystematic risk, even if you've not gone through the question, the whole idea that should always come at the back of your mind is the concept of what? Of appraisal ratio. And in that case, you had looked at that. So in this case, you are told that assume that the risk-free rate is 6% and the average market return is 15%, right? So assume that the risk-free rate is 16% and the average market return is 15%. Required, we are told to compute the Sharpe's performance measures for portfolio P and N, Traynor's performance measures for portfolios P and N, Jensen performance measure for portfolios P and N, as well as the appraisal ratio for portfolios P and N. So that's what the examiner wants us here to determine. And once we have that, my good students, recall the whole idea of performance measures, right? We had looked at that sometimes back when we were doing our coursework. We had talked of the whole concept of the appraisal measures, whereby we talked of these basically three. That is a portfolio performance measures. If you can recall, allow me to erase this point here. If you can recall the aspect of appraisal performance measures. So these are what we literally did when we were looking at portfolio performance measures. Portfolio performance measures, right? We had talked of basically three components. That was aspect to do with Sharpe's portfolio performance measures. Sharpe's portfolio performance measures. Well, we mentioned anytime you see Sharpe's, the whole idea of standard deviation should come at the back of your mind. You'll find that basically Sharpe's, this measure indicates excess returns of a portfolio above the risk-free rate as measured by the standard deviation. So the whole idea of Sharpe's, basically, we normally tend to talk of what? The aspect to do with standard deviation, right? Standard deviation. Talk about number two, this person that we refer to as a Traynor's method. So talk about Traynor's method, Traynor's performance, Traynor's portfolio performance measures. You'll find that for Traynors, we normally tend to look at it as the risk premium. That is per unit of beta. The risk premium per unit of beta. Risk premium per unit of beta. So this one, of course, is measured by beta, risk premium per unit of beta. Then we're having basically the last component here that we normally refer to as what? As Jensen method. So Jensen portfolio performance measure. Talk about Jensen portfolio performance measure. So for Jensen portfolio performance measure, my good students, at this point, the whole idea you should always have is the concept of alpha value, right? The concept to do with what? Alpha value. The alpha value, that is where we normally tend to apply Jensen. And for alpha, in the event that you're talking of basically alpha for portfolio, that is always very simple, because at this point, we'll all be talking about the expected return of the portfolio or the security that you are looking at, with less what? The aspect to do with the risk or rather the return of the portfolio, which is basically what? CAPM. That is portfolio or aspect to the security that you're looking at. So these are the three performance measures that we normally tend to talk about. And ideally, we had looked at this sometimes back in our coursework. We had already analyzed all these concepts. So in this question of us, if we were to go through that question, believing that the question is very visible on our end, I believe that this question is very visible on our end. So the first bit, a good examiner wants us to compute Sharpe's, right? First bit, our examiner wants us to compute the Sharpe's using, assume that the risk-free rate is 6% and average market is 15%. You're supposed to compute Sharpe's performance measures for portfolio P and N, right? So after doing that summary, which literally we had it before, our task now will be very easy. Why is Mwalimu saying that our task now will be very easy? Because now I'll be having our Sharpe's performance measures. So talk about our standard deviation, right? So when you are talking of Sharpe's portfolio performance measures, we are talking about the concept to do with what? Our standard deviation. So you say that this model uses what? Standard deviation to evaluate our performance. It uses standard deviation basically to evaluate our performance. That is one thing that we should always be able to have in mind. So in this case, talk of basically Sharpe's portfolio. Sharpe's will all be talking of our expected return minus our risk-free. We divide by standard deviation of our portfolio, or in this case of our security. That is what we should be having. So I need to determine Sharpe's of P. We need to measure it over security P. So for security P, I'll be having the expected return of security P. We are given what value there, my good students. If you can check the expected return, that is the average return of security P, I'm given 35%. So literally we're having 35 here minus risk-free. A good examiner had given us risk-free of 6%. If you can check our question there, you're given 6, that is the expected return. Expected return, in this case, we're given 6%, right, of this security. 6% over the standard deviation. A good examiner also gave us the standard deviation there, which if you can check our standard deviation, literally, I'm given a figure format. Standard deviation, in that case, I was given a value of 42. If you can check it out, I'm having 42, right? So basically, I'd be having 42 here. Standard deviation, that is, I'm given basically standard deviation of portfolio P. I can see I'm having what? I'm having 42. So in this case, therefore, what will be our value? What will be our value here? My value, therefore, for Sharpe's for security P, I should be talking of, where is my calculator? I'll be talking of 35 minus 6 divide by 42 to give us basically what? 0.690. Are you getting that value as Mwalimu? We're having basically that value of 0.690. That is what Mwalimu is getting. Kindly confirm. 0.690. That is what I'm getting. Kindly can confirm. What about Sharpe's of basically security N, as per what you are given there? So of security N, see the same concept will apply. We take the expected return of security N, which in this case I can see it was at 28, minus risk-free, divide by the standard deviation of security N, which in this case I'm given what? 30. So 30%. What will it give us? I'll be having 28 here minus 6 divided by 30, which I'm getting 0.733. 0.733. So guys, kindly confirm if we are getting the same values. Kindly confirm if you're getting the same values. So once you're done with Sharpe's, of course, talk about the other bit, which is we can talk about, you are also asked of what? Trainers, right? Trainers performance measures of P and N. So trainers performance measures. So we are done with Sharpe's. Talk about trainers. Trainers performance measures. This again will literally be very, very simple. Why? Because Mwalimu had already shared with us the concept of trainer, whereby you mentioned that basically this is a risk premium per unit of beta, or in other case, you'll find that Traynor's model uses beta factors to evaluate what our performance of the securities. So the whole idea will be just as what we've looked at here. So for trainers, I'll be having my expected return minus risk-free, right? We divide by now beta of our portfolio or the security that you're looking at. That is the only difference, by the way, comparing the two. So like in this case of ours, this will be simple because I'll just be having Traynor's model of P. I should be talking of 35 minus 6. We divide by the beta. If you can check your question, my good students, what were we given as beta of our securities here? Beta of security P, I can see I was given 1.25. In the other case for N, I should be having my value 28 minus 6. We divide by beta, which I was given beta for security N to be what? Beta of security N, I was given 1. Yeah? So that will make our work much easier. Where in this case, I'll be talking of 35 minus 6, right? Divide by 1.25 to give us 23.22. 23.2. The other one I should be having 28 minus 6. Divide by 1 should give us 22. Kindly guys, you can confirm with Mwalimu if at all we are getting the same values. Kindly confirm if at all we are getting the same values with Mwalimu. And whenever you're having a question, of course, you can always tend to raise it. Okay. So once we have that bit, in this context, what I'll always want us also to remember, like it is always advisable that having it into percentage, it is also very key. Like in this context, literally, we can do it as 0.35 minus 0.06 should give us almost the same value. We divide by 1.25. That should give you almost the same value, right? 0.35 minus 0.06 divided by 1.25 to give us basically 0.23. 0.232. See? Almost same values, right? The other bit here, if I told you a stroke of it, it should give us 0.22. So you're having that bit, right? So once we have that in mind, we can proceed to the next component here, which is the next performance measure. Talk about what? Jensen. So can I erase here? I can. I want to maintain that question with us there. So looking at Jensen portfolio measure, we say that this one basically will be looking at what? The alpha values, right? We'll be talking about the alpha values. And for alpha values, we've literally mentioned that for us to determine the alpha of the portfolio, I'll be having expected return minus what? The return. This is of our security, which in this case we're looking at what? we are looking at CAPM. So that is to say, I must determine the expected return, or rather CAPM, of each and every item that I'll be having here, of each and every item of a security, which literally, so you are looking at only two securities, right? Which literally, we are looking at two securities here. Which literally, we are looking at the two securities. So, it will be upon us to basically determine that. It will be upon us to basically determine our component here. And that would be very easy because CAPM return, recall, CAPM return, as Mwalimu mentioned, talk about risk-free. We add, of course, our values, which are expected return or return of our security minus our risk-free. Here, we multiply by beta coefficient. That is CAPM, beta of our security. So, in this context, I'm having how many securities? We're having security P and N. So I'm having basically security P and N. So we can talk about basically P and N here, right? So if you're talking for risk-free, what are we given here? A figure of our risk-free. The examiner was very particular and it was very clear where we are told that basically our risk-free was 6%. See that where I was given below? That assume that the risk-free is 6%. So basically that is a 6 plus our return of the both securities. In this case, I'm having the average return for security P, which I was given a value of how much? Is it basically, that is we are given our return of our portfolio. A good examiner giving us the return of the portfolio, right? Where we are told that the average return of the portfolio is what percentage? 15. Just look there. Assume that the risk-free rate is 6%. The average market return is 15. So I should be having what? Average market return of 15. So I'd be having 15 minus risk-free 6. 15 minus risk-free 6. Beta. What is the beta coefficient of security P? Beta coefficient of security P is 1.25. And this one is basically 1. So that as at the end of the day, what will we be having? As at the end of the day, what will we be having here, my good students? As at the end of the day, this will be easy because I'm having 15 minus 6 times 1.25 plus 6 to give me a figure 17.25%. 17.25%. Whereas the other one I'll be having, of course, 15 minus 6 times 1 plus 6 to give us 15%. You can basically confirm with what you are getting. Kindly, you can basically confirm with what you are getting so that Mwalimu should not be doing his own things here. Have we done that, my good students? Kindly confirm if we are on the same page. Now, after that, we proceed. So we need basically Jensen method. So our Jensen, alpha for security, expected return of security P. If we were to start with security P, what was the expected return? The one that was given on top there. The value that I was given, you can literally see I was given what? 0.35, or rather 5%, right? So I'll be having here my 35 minus the risk, or rather the return of security CAPM, which I'm having basically what? 17.25. Whereas the other one, they basically talk about the alpha of security N. Same concept. What expected return was I given there? Expected return of this security value 28, right? So I'm having basically 28 minus 15. So simply, this will give us what? This will literally give us a value of basically 35 minus 17.25%, This should give me 17.75%. Whereas the other one, 28 minus 15, this should give me 13%. And we are done with that part. We are done with that part. Very easy, right? And I know it's just flowing. So that's how basically a firm should always tend to be. That's how financial management should always tend to be. Not complicated. So long as you just understand the concepts right, you'll find that our work will be very, very easy, right? Yeah, so once you're done with that bit, you can proceed to the next question where our good examiner had asked us the other part here, that we should work out the appraisal ratio for portfolios P and N. The appraisal ratio for portfolio P and N. So anytime we are talking of the appraisal ratio, my good student, you'll find that at this point, these are how or what you must always tend to have. Allow me to erase this because I know we have it now. Talk about the appraisal ratio. Appraisal ratio here. Appraisal ratio. We normally tend to talk about excess return. Excess return. We normally divide this by our excess standard deviation. Excess standard deviation. That would give us, of course, what we normally refer to as what? The appraisal ratio. So for appraisal ratio, you'll find that the expected return, basically, you must always tend to be given. You must always tend to be given. You must always tend to be given. Where, in the event that you're supposed to determine your expected return, how will you go about it? This is like we are talking of expected return to be the aspect of the expected return of our security minus expected return of the market. Okay? Divide by excess standard deviation. We'll be talking of basically the standard deviation of our security minus standard deviation of the market. As simple as that. So you'll find that in this case, for appraisal ratio model to work very well, you must always be given a benchmark security. You must always be given a benchmark security. But in the event that you're not given a benchmark security, then you'll find that for you to determine your aspect of the appraisal ratio, we'll always be talking of the excess return. Excess return. We divide by the non-systematic risk of the security. And that's why Molimo mentioned this from the word go. Non-systematic risk of the security. In the event that you're not given what? In the event that you're not given basically the standard deviation of the market. So like in our case, you aren't given the standard deviation of the market, but you're given what? The non-systematic risk, right? So how will you go about it? In that case, that will be simple now. For us to determine the appraisal ratio, for us to determine our appraisal ratio of security P, therefore, we should start by considering our excess return. How will you measure your excess return? Our return of this security P was 35. The average market return was 15, right? We divide by the aspect you do with non-systematic risk. What was our non-systematic risk of security P? I was given a systematic risk to be 18. Then appraisal ratio of security N, the same concept, return, which was 28 minus the expected return of the market, which is 15 to get excess. We divide by basically our value here, which will be what? We divide by our, what we are terming it as non-systematic risk. Non-systematic risk of our security N, I'm given 10. So therefore, what will be our appraisal ratio? What will be our appraisal ratio in that context? That will be very simple because I'll just be having it in this case. Pick my calculator, get basically 35 minus 15. divide by 18 to give me 1.11. 1 to 3 decimal place, 28 minus 15, divide by 10 to give me 1.3. The appraisal ratio, the appraisal ratio, the appraisal ratio. So you'll find that basically these are what you are supposed to basically have in mind and what you're supposed to basically do what have. So you'll find that question is very good because it literally, it has a cut across all concept of portfolio. That question is very good because you see if we've done everything now relating to portfolio analysis. So at this point, guys, I want us to meet the next session whereby we're going to look at a whole different concept again. See you next time in our next session. Thank you.